Today, I would like to talk about a phenomenon that I've been widespread and spoken a lot about in Africa. That is what Ibrahim Traore has been doing in Burkina Faso. The changes that he's brought in, kicking out the French military, and so on and so forth. Traore has been seen as the leader of the new revolution, resistance and freedom for Africa. And we have been moving slowly but surely in another phenomenon of idolizing him. And that is what actually I want to address. But did you remember that in Africa we had leaders such as Thomas Sankara, we had Sékou Touré, Patrice Lumumba, Medi Ben Boko, and others. And in those days, there were also seen that the people would bring Africa out of the imprisonment of colonialism into the promised land of freedom in all aspects of life. But as those leaders died, most of them being assassinated, the movement of resistance, the movement for the fight for freedom also died. Why did it die with the death of the leaders? Because people idolized the leaders and saw those leaders as the sole people who could bring them to the land of the free. From the prison and the shackles of colonialism. It is important to understand that when a people, say one person or two people or just a little small group of people, as the embodiment of their resistance, the embodiment of their freedom, the embodiment of the resistance, the dismantling of that group, or the killing of those leaders will certainly lead to the destruction of the movement. And I can see that today Africans are leaning to making the same mistake of making one person the embodiment of their ideal of freedom and independence. That will lead to the same consequence, whether killed or dying of a natural disease. If that leader, in this case, Ibrahim Traore, dies, the fight for freedom or resistance will also cease or just diminish greatly in its intensity. History has taught us that movement of liberty, freedom, independence that have survived and went on to gain people the freedom were movements that were not carried by leaders alone. The ideal and the fall of freedom, the fight for independence, was put and carried by the shoulders of each and every individual in a community or in a group of people. Everybody embraced the fight wholeheartedly, and the leader was the guide, but he was not the embodiment of the fight. If we consider Christianity, for instance, the death of Jesus did not cause the death of the Christian faith, because before his departure he made sure that the people that he trained not only had knowledge, but they was also had heart knowledge. They were willing to die for the ideas, the idea that he had transferred unto them. He made them see that they did not need his physical presence for the goal to be reached. And they understood that. It is the same if you consider Gandhi. He died. The fight continued. They might not reach there, but the fight continued. It is the same in this case. The Africans must not make the mistake of idolizing one man and seeing him as the sole embodiment of their fight for resistance and independence. The weight must be carried by each and every African, so that if one leader dies, easily another one can emerge, knowing that he is just the one carrying the torch. I hear a lot of people or read a lot of comments saying, God protects Ibrahim Traore, let him not die today or whatever. He will die one day. But after his departure, will the movement continue? If, let's say, that's not what we wish, but it's obviously a possibility. Let's say he changes his mind and the ardent fire that's burning in him diminishes. Will the movement continue as strongly as it has been? People need to think of that. And for that only to happen, by that I mean the continuation of that movement, there must be people. Not just behind it, but people in it. You hold their soul, you hold their bodies and their spirits. Not just one person. For that was the mistake made by those who came before. No movement or resistance fight can survive if it is placed on the shoulders of one person. It is impossible. History tells us that it has never ever happened and it will not happen. And there is a danger about idolizing one person, so that because that person might think that without them, the movement, the resistance, the freedom will not be achieved. People should realize that no man can be the embodiment of a successful adventure of freedom. In the Bible, Moses was the leader, but he was not the embodiment of freedom. When he died, people continued. Another leader came. Joshua came, he died, people continued. If you look at the world of business, Ford that we have, the company Ford that we have today, was not studied by the leader of Ford today. But the vision was carried on because it was passed on successfully onto others. And it was carried by a group of people, not just by one person. It succeeded. It is the same thing with any political movement trying to achieve the freedom of a people. Yes, it's need a leader, leaders, but never idolize the leaders and never think that without them, the movement cannot continue and be successful. And the leaders have to understand that they need to make the people understand that, so that in their absence, the idea will be pursued and achieved. One man said, I'm making sure that as I'm alive, after my death, what I'm telling you is continued. So shall it be. So yes, people should support a leader. But by doing so, because by doing so they're supporting themselves, if he is also in the same fire with them for their freedom. But at the same time, they must not idolize him, lest they fall in the same trap, giving the enemy an easy or the easiest way to destroy the movement. Because it's very easy to kill one man than to destroy an entire people. So if the vision is carried equally by an entire people, that vision is bound to succeed. But if it is just one man, taking out that one man will terminate the race to freedom.